Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Remote CEO Life podcast. I am joined today by Heather Morgan, who is the host of the Wandering the Wild Mess podcast, which is all about starting over and finding your way back to yourself. After she left behind a marriage, a corporate career, and the only life she knew in Utah, Heather moved to Nashville to start over. She's a writer who has made it her mission to help others shift their mindset, embrace the unknown, and trust the wild mess. So welcome, Heather. Super excited to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here, Sophie.
Amazing. So tell me a little bit more about you, your background, and the story, because I'm very intrigued by everything I've read so far.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot in the last few years of my life that's been transformative. And I think for anyone that's kind of went through change, sometimes it's just given to us and we have to adapt. And then other times it's kind of building, but we don't really know like where it's taking us. And so for me, it was just a disruption of my life when I decided to like leave a marriage that was just no longer for me, but had been such a significant part of my life, not only the marriage, but the person had been a significant part of my life for a very long time. And I decided through the chaos of disrupting my life so wildly that I would just add a few more things. And in that time, I ended up moving across the country all alone to a place I knew no one. And then later, like leaving my corporate career and taking a sabbatical and doing all these things. And so it's just been a really big self-discovery journey. I had a lot of time to really reflect on life and what starting over looks like. And now I'm just really through my podcast sharing this story of the real like honest feelings of anyone in life where they're kind of shedding an identity that they had held close to for so long, and try to figure out like what is their purpose and what are we doing and what's the direction and what makes them happy. And so through that, like I've always been a writer, so writing a lot of those emotions out as well. And then also looking to provide like digital products and tools. That's my next little focus, not to plug, but on how do I help people navigate the same challenges I did when I felt so isolated and alone in that. So yeah, I'm happy to chat all the things with you. There's a lot to unpack.
So essentially talking about navigating change. And obviously change is one of humans' biggest fears, actually.
Yes.
We get so stuck in this like comfort bubble, and then it's actually really hard to come back out of it and then move through change. But it generally happens when we've gone through, like, either we start recognizing little signs and things lead up to it, to the moment of change, or in some cases people are a little bit like maybe put rose colored glasses on the problem, and then it ends up being a breaking point, and then they're forced to make the changes. For you, what was that kind of like turning point to make all of these changes in your life?
So, gosh, when I look back, because I've done a lot of that reflection, especially when I talk about my podcast, so it's been helpful to kind of blurt that all out. But there was so many little building things when I look back. I definitely was wearing rose-colored glasses because I grew up, with a very positive family, and I grew up Mormon in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And there's a lot of culturally that it's like, look buttoned up, have it all together. And I think I just kind of went with that. And I am an innately positive person. I think that is the right way to be. But sometimes you're just not listening to your intuition, right? Like you're just saying it'll be fine, but in your heart of hearts, it's not for you. I didn't do a very good job at listening to that at that time. And I think it's hard for a lot of us to do that when we don't know what's on the other side. So for me, it was like there was so many building things that were looking back, but there was a moment where I knew I couldn't go back. Like it was kind of crazy though. It wasn't like this just download one day. I'm like, I know. It was like a series of events. And then once that one thing happened, I'm like, it just has to be this way. And so I feel like for a lot of people, like they're wanting that like forceful, just when am I going to know for sure? And I think if you already kind of know, then you should go, right? Because sometimes you wait around for the right sign, but if you're looking for it, you probably know it's there.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like we suppress our thoughts and feelings so much because we've kind of been conditioned, particularly like through like different cultural beliefs, family beliefs, religious beliefs, like that you've grown up and been surrounded with. You only really know that So how is it and if they're telling you one thing and that's not to trust, not that it doesn't say not to trust your intuition, but like you're basically being told like to go off of a script essentially,
Yeah.
like way of putting it in like society's expectations essentially. Anything that falls outside of that is a little bit confusing, and it's like, well, how do I know that if this is my gut or like my or just like circumstances telling me that this is what I should be doing? But like exactly, I completely agree with you, exactly what you said. The minute that you have the thought, if it comes, let's say once, okay, could just be like a passing thought.
Mhm.
If it comes back a second time, if it comes back that third time, it comes back the fourth time, there is something that you need to address here. And
Mhm.
I think we're so not used to trusting ourselves. And intuition is something that it's like a bit like a muscle, right? Like you can build it, but you have to build it by trusting it and letting yourself see the results, and then doing the same thing again. Trust, let yourself see the results, and 9 times out of 10. And I don't just say like just go off your gut. Definitely not. Like obviously there's a matter of logic and other things involved as well, but if you can learn how to at least listen to that nudging feeling, at least you're going to then go and explore different options and know which one is going to be best for you.
100%. And I learned through this, it gets louder and more clear. Like to your point, a lot of people are asking, like, when do you know what? But once you start listening, like you said, and again, I'm all about the logic, like but you will know. That's what I'm saying. Like the more you do it and you lean into it, then you trust it even more because the way that it comes to you is just more clear. Like it's almost like a person that you're trying to communicate with, and you're kind of like, we don't really vibe, we don't know what we don't know yet. But the more that you interact with it and the more that you listen and it trusts you and you trust, like there's just this, it just gives you a different level of assurance. Then you start knowing it. At the beginning, it's kind of just like tapping you. But once you are tapping into listening to it, it's loud and you're like, yeah, this is where I need to be. This is what I need to go. And I think it just hopefully continues to just, build because I've seen it grown since first listening to how it speaks to me today.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And the first step, I guess, is like taking the action off the back of the intuition, right? Or of the back of the feeling, or of the back of the breakdown, like whatever it was that forced you to kind of make that change, pushed you towards making that change. So what then was the step, like once you've like, right, I'm making this change, like what was your kind of route from there onwards to actually make it happen for yourself?
Gosh, that's kind of and why I ended up with Wandering the Wild Mess because that's exactly what it felt like, wandering the wild mess. Like I really didn't have clear direction on what my life was going to be like. I had no idea. So I was just so lost. And so I think my intuition was just kind of like, but that really is even how I got to Tennessee. Like I started trusting like one night I was like I was driving. This is a key intuition, like key piece of my story. Like during the separation I had, I just wasn't like I had lived in Utah my entire life, went to university there, like everything. So I had so many of the same friends my whole life. And so this was going to be a huge shift. And I wasn't somebody that had lived, multiple places. So I'm driving, I'm staying with a friend and I'm driving in the neighborhood that my grandparents grew up. And I look and I'm like, I can't live here. Like it was just like I can't live here. And it was very loud. Sorry, my dog wants to hang
So
out now suddenly. Okay, you're good. But I was like, I can't live here. So I didn't even know what that meant because I like didn't have plans to go anywhere else. And like a few days but I just was holding that space for I can't live here. And then a few nights later, I was up late and I was like, started to look at places to live. And I literally mapped out Hendersonville, Tennessee, which is 30 minutes out of Nashville. That I was like, it's close to Nashville. Like, I never even been to Nashville. That's how crazy it was. And I ended up, long story short, I literally looked at houses that night just to look, how we all do, like, oh. And the next day, a realtor called and was like, do you want to see this house? And I'm like, I live in Utah. Like, I kind of didn't remember. I drank some wine. And then I was like, but sure. So I figured it out to like, I couldn't go right away because of my job. And then I finally did. And the house was gone, but I wanted to still meet her. And I literally got on the plane and was like, when I touch down, like at BNA in Nashville, I will know if I'm supposed to be here. I just will know. And as soon as I got off the plane, And I started like, I knew I hadn't been to anything yet. I hadn't even checked in my hotel. I was like, picked up the rental car and I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And it was so loud and so true. And I remember at the time my corporate job was in office and I was like, I'm just going to tell them. I don't like, and if they don't want me to, then I'm just going to leave. Like it was so, and if you know me before, because I know there's people like this, now I'm this person, but the previous identity that I like, the previous me was not this person. Like people in my life were going like, what? Because I was so very much planned and, you know, corporate ladder and like very regimented and definitely more that way than like my ex. So in that dynamic, he's probably going like, what in the heck who is this person? You know? And so it was such a contrast of the previous way I would make decisions and the overthinking that I would and worry that I would allow myself to like really talk myself out of a lot of great things and opportunities, or maybe just not even appreciate them because I was so worried about so many things outside of what I was just doing. And so that's kind of like a long-winded answer, but it was again following my intuition and just like allowing it. I feel like it took over me. You know what I mean? I'm like, a lot of things I did in that period of my time, I was like, how did I even do that?
No, it definitely sounds like it was so strong that you really could not ignore it, which I think is incredible. Like to just be able to go for one way of being and then to be like, actually, this isn't working for me. And like you said, you had that feeling like I can't live here. Like I feel that same way about the UK. Like I can't live there. Like it doesn't work for me. So like my motivation is way stronger to find something else that does work for me. So I think when you start noticing what you don't want, I think that that is the turning point of you starting to trust what you do want based on your intuition, your gut feelings, because ultimately you need to, if you know what you don't want, you need to figure out what you do want. And the only way you kind of, the only guiding light that you've kind of slightly maybe got is the intuition, really. Like no one's going to tell you what to do and where to go. So I think it's great that you were able to tap into that and find that. But what did that take? Like obviously there's also sometimes a bit of a disconnect where I know in my personal case there sometimes is a disconnect between my intuition, my ego, my emotions, my thoughts. So talk to me about that process for you. Like your obviously intuition was telling you to go and do something, but was your head there and your body there at the same time?
And that's a good point because I'm really in the process of just releasing the ego, right? But I was not there on this journey yet. So I think ego was helpful in this because once I kind of made my mind up that I was moving, it was one of those like if you start telling people like am I really going to do it. And so I remember one night I was super messy and I had met someone and you know I was like don't fall in love with me, I'm moving to Tennessee. And like he's probably like I mean, I knew him from before, but he's probably, and then he went to high school with me, but then I met him again and he's probably like, I met you for like this one, like, but it was again, another like blurting out random. Like once I said it to someone out loud, like I'm moving to Tennessee and he's like, okay, cool. Like I was like, the ego's like, I'm doing it now. So I just kind of like started telling people because once you kind of blurt it out and someone you look someone in the eye and say that you're doing it, I think sometimes if, you know, and I was a competitive person. Like now I don't, not like in a unauthentic, like rude, but I was like, you want to win, right? But I've learned that like we all win and there's not really a need for competition during my journey. But in that point in time, I was like very ego, like if I tell people I'm doing it, I'm doing it. And I think there is a part of ego outside of that where it's just being true and honest and genuine to yourself. So it's not always ego, but at that time it was ego. And I was just like, I'm telling, and it just in a slight way of like, if I say this out loud, my ego will be hurt if I can't do it because I said that I'm going to. And so, and it was almost like that, the combination of telling people out loud and the ego piece. And then also like, to your point is I knew I couldn't live there. So what else am I going to do? I couldn't stay there. So I just had to figure it out because I couldn't even visualize myself continuing my life there. Like there wasn't a part of me, and I'm big into visualization now. And I feel like that is also your intuition helps you foresee where your life should go or where it is meant to be. And so in that scenario, I just could not even wrap my head around like what it would look like for me to stay in Salt Lake. Like there was not even a vision of that. And so that had really And weirdly, I kind of took back to like my younger years of where I would visualize, and I didn't know any of the things I do now then about could I see myself doing that? And that really helped me to our point about following, like listening to your intuition. That made like, okay, take the idea your intuition is going and be like, can I see myself being there? Or can, you know what I mean? Or not being there? Because that's maybe the question that you have to ask in that situation. Because often if you can see yourself there, then you're closer to being there than you think. And
Yeah.
if you can't yet, then maybe you're just not ready for the move. It's not that you're not supposed to be there. It's just you're not ready yet. Like you're not that version of yourself that is ready to step into that world. So that's kind of where I was at. Like it was very much ego. I told a random person, I just had to do it. And then I literally, Sophie, I literally don't even know how I managed it. Like there was so many things. It's just I think that it was such a true testament that when where you need to be is meant for you, everything around it will just fall into place. Because even with the girl that's now still my friend, was my realtor at the time, like she never even met me. This is like one girl one night drinking wine, clicks on the page and wants to look at this house. She was really like, hey, like persistent. It was months. That was probably like the summer of 2022. And I didn't end up moving out here until February of 2023. And I was like in Airbnbs for months. Like she didn't know if she was going to get like any kind of payday off of me. Like I'm just some random girl that like, she doesn't know my situation, but she like persistently was reaching out. And it seems small, but like that nudge, like it kept me on the path because I had her like reminding me of that goal and making it realistic in my mind and not in a pushy way, just continual nudges.
Yeah.
And I feel like if she would have fell off, it would have been easier for me to just kind of be like, well, but it was almost like I didn't know what I was doing, but I had this little lifeline of a realtor that was there to kind of, and she ended up moving like not too long after she has now moved to back to California. So it was just like this short timing where in my move, now she's in Nashville, and moving me along. And I don't think that's by chance. I don't really believe in chance, but like it was just looking back, I'm like, once you decide and you visualize it and you listen to it and that's where you're supposed to go, everything else will conspire around you to ensure that you get to where you're going.
I fully, fully, fully agree with you, and everything you're kind of saying really aligns with. I don't know if you're familiar with Lacey Phillips, who does the Too Big Magnetic manifestation membership, and the story that you're describing to me in her terminology, it would be like that you followed a series of, she calls them pings, and it's like little bits of information that you kind of piece together to get you to where you want to be, alongside listening to your gut intuition. But I also believe that you need a bit of ego in order to follow those things until you've learned to trust the intuition. Like if I use an example of me, like I obviously travel full time now, but many, many years ago, like 10 years ago, nearly 11 years ago now, but like I moved to Italy. I'd never been to Italy. I didn't speak Italian, like I didn't know any Italians. I was this 23-year-old kid, like, oh yeah, like just being approached by a headhunter that wanted them to move to Italy, and I was like, oh well, this opportunity is very interesting, but I was like, what is this? This is so random, and like just so many little things. Like for example, like I'd go to ice cream shop or something in London, and it would have a picture on the wall of the town that I was potentially going to be moving to, or like just like little things. And like I wasn't that bothered by the job that I was being offered, but then they were really pursuing me, so I was like, okay, maybe I'm meant to go there. But that's just a fully ego decision. It was like, right, I want to move abroad, so I'm gonna move to Italy, like random, like I've never been to Italy, like no idea what this is gonna be. And I was just like, right, let's get on the plane. But I wasn't trusting that was the right thing. I was just like, right, well, this is what I'm doing, and I've just got to go for it because I'm a traveler now and I want to move to Italy. So it is definitely like, it helps, I think, like with the ego, just pushing you in that direction until you learn how to trust the process. Because I think once you've gone through big change once, you go through, you'll notice the pattern of how things present, and like how you can start trusting your intuition. And going back to what I was saying about like the Lacey Phillips membership, she has so much terminology to describe exactly the journey that you've just been on. Is essentially like it, although manifestation, obviously people think it's like a bit more of a woo woo subject, there's actually scientific evidence around manifestation as well. Like, because as soon as you start seeing something to be true for yourself, it activates your is it reticular activated system or
Mhm.
something, and you can start seeing, let's say for example you want a yellow car, you've decided you want a yellow car, you're going to start seeing yellow cars absolutely everywhere. And it just starts, no, you just start, your eyes open to it a little bit more, because your brain has realized that it is possible for you, you are able to achieve that for yourself. So everything that you said there, it makes perfect sense. You manifested this life into your world.
Yeah.
You didn't necessarily know what it was going to look like, or if it was going to turn out exactly how you'd visualized it to be.
Yes, I 100% know that, like, I was supposed to be here and I manifested those things, like, the whole way. And to your point, I had so many of those same nudges where you just see, like, I was in Utah before I was driving the rest of my stuff when I finally came back to get it and had a place to live. And I remember being at this, like, place in Utah in Moab, which isn't like Tennessee people aren't there. When I lived there before, I didn't even know anyone that from Tennessee. And right, they went to the dog park with my friend before I met someone from Tennessee. I was like, and then when I'm at this, hike in Moab, there's like a Tennessee license plate, like same, and they seem small, but like you're just like, it's showing you you're like you're taking the right steps. It's kind of just like a little hug. I feel like a comfort to like, okay, you're going where you're supposed to be. And it just like reaffirms your trust in the process. And to your point, like I didn't know how, and now in my journey, like there's a lot of things I'm working to, and I wouldn't even say working to manifest. A lot of things that I will manifest into my life, but I'm so trusting in the how is just not my business. Like I take aligned action and I do the things that I feel in my soul, and like the intuition says, yeah, this feels right. But for all of the things that I know I'm meant for, like I completely surrender to just allowing those to come to me however that makes sense. And I'm a big like with no harm to anyone and the greater good of all. Because I have seen some other manifestations come where I never wish harm on anyone. I've read a little like people are like, oh, well, maybe you get like in a wreck because you wanted insurance, you got insurance money. Like, I mean, I know how powerful like ask and you shall receive is, that I'm very kind, like conscious of my words in that regard, I guess. Because
Word
now
of
I've
mouth,
seen the magic.
for sure. Like there is definitely some level of that for sure to go off of.
Yeah.
You know how we're talking about like we trust our intuition, we've learned how to trust our intuition, but there are a lot of people that won't trust their intuition, but will start having all of these pings, start having all of these like nudges, start having all of these feelings, these emotions. What would you say to them as somebody that like is maybe, for example, everything that I do is around like helping people leave their current circumstances to start an online business if they want more freedom in their life, and that freedom can look like whatever that means to you. I know for you, you mentioned that freedom is living in alignment with your soul. Some people it might be financial freedom, location freedom, time freedom, but they won't all, not everyone is going to be taking action to go and get that freedom because they feel maybe stuck, or they don't trust that it's possible for them, they haven't seen that it's be possible for them. What would you say to that person that maybe is in that situation and wants to make the change but hasn't just quite got their mindset there yet?
I would say trust the process and the journey for them, right? Because I think that even for me, I still remember that mindset, being that person myself. I can put myself back there, and you can't really convince anyone. Like we're all on our own journey. So what I would say is that look around at the people that have done it. Like one of the biggest things in this journey for me is I know I feel very called to continue down this path so that I can show people in my life and people that need to see it that it's possible by me being that person. Right? So I think sometimes like if you're curious, if I can do it, and that is very much my message, then so can you. Because we all are innately powerful. We all have this in us. It's just whether or not we want to tap into that and whether or not we really want to like believe in ourself and our capabilities. Like I'm no better than anyone else that on this planet, right? So if I can make these scary changes and I can move across the country alone and I can bet on myself and make these things happen, like you can too. It's just whether or not you're ready to embody that version of yourself that does that. And that's where you just kind of have to step back and self-reflect. There's no like tool online. Okay, if you do this, like that's for me, I'm on the other side. Like I definitely understand why people think manifestation is woo-woo, but I also even am someone that maybe unpopular opinion, like you can take strategy when it comes to business because there's a lot of layers and things. But when you're talking about your life, and how it works to like manifest things, and again that's really just embodying the version of yourself that you want to show up to in this world. There's no strategy. You already know. It doesn't need a strategy because it's just you leaning into that. And once you decide, everything like we talked about will move in the direction. You don't have to figure out. Sometimes you're almost blocking your destiny by trying to figure out the how because you're not trusting that it's possible for you. So that alone is not going to allow you to embody that person. So really it's like, to me, if someone asks like how could I, move in the directions you move, or how can I, it's like decide that you believe in yourself enough that you're capable to, and really step back and be like, what is the version of myself that I want to be look like? What actions does she take? Does she want to start this online business? Does she want, like, would she believe in herself? Would this be something she wants to wake up, or he, day and day and do? Like what does that person do? And that will tell you the answer. The highest version of yourself, when you jot down what that person does, which that's you, when you look at what that person does, then you go, okay, this is the aligned one. Maybe I want to work with you and I want to learn to start this business because that feels in alignment with the person I want to be, but not for the money. I know we want financial freedom, but it can't be a decision based because that's almost ego. Are you wanting the money to show that you have the things, the this and that? If it's solely just, I want financial freedom to do the things, because we're all, again, we forget all these things, Sophie, that there's enough abundance for all of us. There's no lack of abundance. There's no lack of opportunity. There's no lack of any of those things. And when you finally pull that, like the wool's head off, and realize that all the opportunities, all the abundance is out there, you just have to decide how like where you're going. Not how. You have to decide who you want to be. And then all of those other answers will come. Whether it's like I'm doing the podcast, that's just part of it. I know that's just part of my journey. Will it be forever? I don't know. Like I will be guided, but for now it is. And abundance comes in a lot of ways for people. I think like they just want the money right away. Like I feel like that's been a part of like in a lot of the content but it's money can come at any time. But the greater purpose is, what are you going to do with your life?
Well, this is the thing, and this is my whole kind of mission also at the moment, is to help people figure that out, because it's like, you can want, just like say you want to start a business for financial freedom. Okay, great. But what does that look like? Like, what does it actually look like when you achieve that financial freedom? Because if you're setting up a business, for example, solely for the money, what if it makes you miserable on a day-to-day basis? What if you're doing something that you absolutely hate and wake up? Then you're not free. That's not freedom. So like for me, I agree with you. Freedom is living in alignment with your soul. And it's like doing something that serves you for a reason and makes you happy, because we can earn all the money, like you say, there's plenty of it to go around, plenty of abundance, we can gain back all of the time, we can have the location freedom, but if we wake up miserable every day, really, are we free? No, we're not. So it's about like really tapping into exactly what you said, like what does your higher self want, what is it that you're trying to achieve, and then everything else will fall into place. All of that other freedom will come to you when you've got really clear on that. And I've just launched a free masterclass. Actually, it's called Find Your Freedom Model, and it's around like how to start an online business. But it starts off at that basics of like, well, what purpose are you trying to serve by setting up this online business for yourself and also for like the potential customer, and what is your why? Because your why needs to be strong enough. If you're starting an online business and you don't have that why, you are not going to work through all the challenges. You're not going to have the motivation or the perseverance or the resilience to work through all the challenges that will naturally present when you start an online business. So, like I fully agree with everything you said. Like, you have to have that strong enough purpose, like have to have that vision really clearly in your mind of exactly who it is that you want to be showing up at in order for all of these things to fall into place.
Yes, and I think people sometimes get scared by that if they don't know right away what their purpose is, like, for things, and everyone's is so different. So, don't like, I would tell people, like, don't judge, like, if you think yours is not big enough. Like, everyone has a piece in this, right? And so, some people's could seem bigger, but it's not. Everyone's impact matters. So, I think, like, don't sell yourself short if you're thinking, like, for me, my purpose is I just really like to draw pink elephants, and that's what I want to sell. Someone's going to find so much joy in that pink elephant. So I just think sometimes it's hard. We hear these stories of like these adverse, these big things that happen in people, or like, my life wasn't like, I don't have that story to tell, so I can't be significant enough in my purpose. But it's like, no, everyone's journey is different. Everyone plays a role. And if that calls your soul, like, I have no talent to draw a pink elephant. So if someone wants a painting of a pink elephant in this world, I'm waiting for John or Emily to do that for them to, you know what I mean? Because I'm not, you know what I mean? So we all have those purposes that bring a different perspective, a different something that brings joy or brings light to someone's world that, that not all of us can do, So we need everyone to kind of lean into finding their purpose and not, discounting a purpose that they think doesn't seem as significant as someone else's. And
No.
I'll tell you why I even thought of that really quick, because some of this work that I've done, like, and I am in, like, again, I'm into a lot of things like mindset, and I agree there's so much science behind it. So it's not for me, the neuroscience I've read myself, but like, someone brought up, like, when I was talking about manifestation, oh, like Gabby Bernstein, but I don't have her journey. Like, I had a very different life, and I had to really, like, I'm very thankful for the family I had. And I was talking to someone and they said, well, your story needs to be heard too, because there's a whole bunch of people out there that think, and I have done this. I've suppressed it. I didn't realize that, oh, well, since did have aspects of my childhood that were difficult, but it was more around my parents' illnesses or different things that they had, but not like anything you know, extreme. But they were like, some people are like, oh, maybe I'm not meant for like a bigger life because I had a good childhood. They see the people that had all this adversity and that, and those are the people that deserve to make it because they had all these things. You're still deserving if you had loving parents. And there's a whole bunch of people out there that was just their journey. I still have trials, right? Like, I've still had some really difficult things happen in my life that I try to focus on as lessons. So I don't really focus on them as hard things, but I know if they were handed to someone else, like, they would be very hard. And so I think we have to remember that our story is unique. And so to me, that's the comparison of me downgrading, like, well, you had a good childhood, so I don't know why you're striving for all these things, but it's like, no, there's a whole bunch of people out there that can't tell a story of like this horrible, we slept on the floor and we didn't have, that kind of thing, but they still had challenges. They were just different. So again, just like purpose, your journey doesn't say, oh, well, Sophie can't go for that because she had this.
No, everyone. The thing is, everybody is so unique, right? Like, and there's not one person that has the same story, the same upbringing, the same belief system. Like, everybody has got such unique qualities and reflections of things that they've gone through and the experiences that they've had. That's what is so great about business and like bringing something to the world and offering a service, or like even opening up a podcast and sharing a story, is because there will be somebody else just like you out into the world. I don't even remember how many people are in the world right now, like billions, right? So there is not many times out of 10 there is going to be a person out there waiting to hear from you and your story. I think what we can be guilty of sometimes is making our worlds too small and thinking, oh well, everybody in my hometown, like, who's gonna care? And it's like, okay, yeah, well, maybe, like, if you've all had the same upbringing, then maybe, like, it's gonna be a little bit harder to sell to them. But actually, think bigger. We all think way too small. And I think I've been lucky enough to be able to think a bit bigger because I've traveled so much and seen so many different things, experienced so many different people. But I do know that if I went back to my hometown and met somebody that lived there and never left their whole life, which does tend to happen, they're going to have a very different perspective on that as me, and they're going to tell me to stop thinking so big because it's not possible, you know. So it's like we all have our own thing. But I think if you want to share something with the world, whether that be a business, a story, like whatever it looks like for you, you have to believe that there is somebody else out there that is wanting to hear it. And I listened to a really good podcast about this actually yesterday, and it was like, well, we have to be, if we want to know our own story, if we're looking at other people to hear their stories, somebody is also going to want to hear ours. It doesn't matter how good or bad the story is, like, there's still some kind of resonance and relevance in that story to be told, for sure.
100%. And I agree, like, if you're called to put it out there, it's because someone needs it. Right? Like, so if you don't like, even in your scenario of like starting the online business, like if you have an idea and you have that thought and you see some vision there, then it's because someone needs it. If you're really like, if it's a feeling, it's not ego driven, right? Like we talked about before. If it's like, I just want to make a whole bunch of money, but usually ego wouldn't come in with make pink elephants. That's
Yeah.
not your ego, right? So if it's just that's what you want to do, then it's for the great, like your intuition's guiding what's best for us all. I truly believe that. Like what's best for us all. So you becoming that higher self and you putting that out to the world, that is you kind of like collectively helping us all. And I get what you're saying because I'm thinking about like mine wasn't super small hometown, but I'm thinking about the people back home that, and it is a hard concept to wrap around when you're not there yet. But
Yeah.
I recently saw, or I was reading something that was talking about, or maybe listening to something about like this now and this, how our world works. There has never been a greater time to put yourself out there. There's so many people from across the world that want to hear your story. And I found that to be true even with my podcast. And I know you travel a lot. I've stayed in the States. I've been over like to the UK. I actually got married there, weirdly.
Wow, okay.
That's a whole other story. But it's just so weird. But it's like the people that are like commenting and saying, like, I've had a lot of people like write me about my podcast episodes. My most recent one was about like men's mental health, because that's like a space that calls to me based on my experience with growing up with a father that felt like he really couldn't share as a man, military father, this kind of thing. And I know that's tied to my calling. He died young, and like I know that there's part of my purpose that's here to like kind of bridge that gap, this men against women, and just really like realize we're all humans doing life for the first time. And so it's something that's super passionate to me, and I can tie it to I'm doing this work for my dad. Right. And there's people like across the country that don't even have like the same, and they're writing me from and saying like, that meant so much that they heard this woman and they still feel this way, and that's how their upbringing. And they were like in like Asia, like a whole, and like they were, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like to hear that, this girl in Nashville is compassionate about men having the ability to have space to have emotions, and however they find me, like YouTube, what we were talking about earlier, like it's just to take the time to reach out. Like those are other hugs and nudges that you're on the right path,
Yeah.
because you get people out of the woodworks that have no real rhyme or reason to take the time and space to reach out to you and say like, hey, listening to your episode made me feel seen, because I feel the same way, and they kind of want to share their story. And I think for people like you're saying that are just kind of isolated and they don't see it, when they start, I'm always like lead by example. I know I'm a born leader. I've always known that, but I've, stepped aside and played safe. Like, so I understand the people that are, but when you are like, you see it's possible for someone or other people, especially that look like you, or not just have to look like you, but like kind of have that same energy as you. I think even that, where they know you're like authentic with your purpose for it, it just like attracts so much. And I think it's just that first little nudge of someone that doesn't think they can do it. They see you doing it. They don't know how, but they know you're true and authentic in your words. So even like with manifestation, when I speak about it, I don't talk about it on my podcast a lot, but I'm passionate about it. I think it's like, my friend said this so well. She's like, "But you're so real and grounded that it does come across like even I'm believing it now because you're not someone that's just going to like I'm not you know what I mean? There's an element of like trust where I still have that corporate hat I can throw on. You know, I was worked for large companies for a long time. So like I still am grounded to the real world in the sense that I can express in that way. But I'm not selling you anything. And that, you know what I mean? I'm just telling you my story because I know it can bring you to where you need to be.
Yeah, 100%. I really resonate with that. It makes a lot of sense. And
Mhm.
now you're on the other side of the change. Tell me a little bit about that. What does the other side look like for you?
Gosh, I feel like euphoric is the word. I'm like I'm because I'm literally nothing is really like I when people talk about like hard and that like yeah there's hard things. I'm never one to say that there's not going to be things that are hard, but I've really like taken this perspective that that's always for me, it's always working out for me. And so sometimes, like, whatever you want to call it, God, universe, source, like, has to intervene in some ways to kind of like direct certain things for them to orchestrate in the background because you can really only focus on where you know you should be. And so things have to move. So, like, a perfect example I'll give. So, because this just happened, and my friends are like, we went out for my birthday in Nashville, and I like was walking out the door. We were taking an Uber and I brought my keys because I have a padlock, but I grabbed them because whatever reason. And I was like, I shouldn't bring my keys. I'm not even driving, whatever. And I remember thinking that, but of course, we were like, hurry, get in the Uber. So I did. So by the end of the night, when I get home, I don't have my keys. And I'm like, and I was like, oh, and it's like a fob key, you know, but I knew I had another key. I had the padlock so I could get in my house, but my keys are gone. And I'm just like, so I'm calling all the places we were to see if they fell out. I knew they'd probably fall out of that purse. It was just not an ideal. It was just one of those. So I'm calling and I'm not like finding them. And so, but I had just randomly, of course, made an extra house physical key. And the reason that was important because I was going out of town. And so I would need to leave the key with my dog sitter. So again, I'm like, see, it works out. Like, I don't even know why I decided to make that key that day. I was leaving the grocery store. There was a machine. I was like, I should probably get a spare key.
No way.
So then I lose my keys. So then I'm like, I'm not finding them. I'm like, I'll find them. My friends are freaking out. Like, you lost your key, you know, whatever. So I'm like, I'll just go downtown to Nashville. I'll go retrace my steps and look for them. And so I'm doing that. And my buddy had taken the gifts that I got for my birthday, like in his car. And so he just happened to also be downtown. So he's like, well, while you're looking for your keys, let me give you these things. And I was like, okay. And then I go look for them and they're not coming up. But I run into one of my buddies that I hadn't seen in a minute and I give him a hug. I hadn't hugged someone in a minute. I get like, not really. I was my birthday, but like I just gave him a hug, whatever. We chatted for a minute and then I don't find my keys, get my gifts, go home. And so my friend calls and she's like, did you find your keys? Like, I can't believe you lost your keys. And I was like, no, but that I think I was just supposed to do that. I don't know if it was I was supposed to see him, but then when I opened one of the gifts that I got from my friend's car, I was just sobbing. And it wasn't anything big. It was just a message that I needed. And I don't know when I would have got the gifts because I was traveling for the next, week and a half or whatever right after that. And so for me, I just chalk it up like I still haven't found them, but they'll find my way to me when they're supposed to. But I have everything I need. I have the other key. I had another fob key. Like you know what I mean? It all fell into place. And like sometimes it's like the purpose for challenges or things, even as small as the keys, we get so mad. Like, how could I do that? How, whatever. And it's like, maybe I needed to see that buddy.
Yeah.
Maybe he needed my energy and my kind words. Maybe someone that I interacted with just in that short period of time, like needed me to be there. So for me, I think that all things are purposeful, even if we don't see them. And so that would be like perfect example of just kind of how I move through the world now is just knowing that it's like for me or for the greater good of someone else. And so I just have to like, trust that everything just works out as it should.
Yeah.
And then it's just such a perspective that is probably that's why I call it a fork, because I'm almost in tears how much gratitude I have for even being able to embody this mindset,
Yeah.
because I don't know how I could convince my previous self or my past life Heather like how to do this, and just being able to lean into it is just such it's just such an easy way to regulate my nervous system, to feel at peace, to feel calm and all the time. And
No.
it's like it's crazy. So there's so much joy on the other side basically.
No, for sure. I think if you can learn to trust and just know that everything is gonna work out, like regardless of what the situation is, and especially if you can, like what I like what you said there, take things as lessons and the learnings from the things that are maybe going wrong. Like obviously life sucks sometimes and things do go wrong and there are hard things that people go through, but it's all about perspective and it's all about learning from the things that happen. If you can shift the perspective from, oh, this is such a big to being like, right, okay, well, why did that happen? What do I need? What do I always say, like, don't just focus on the problem, focus on the solution, and look at like moving how you can move forward from that. And the lesson or the situation was always going to be and present itself in the way that it needed to happen. Yeah, there's a lot of peace that can be found with that mentality for sure. But no, that was such an inspirational story, like taking us on a journey there, like through all of the things that have happened and where you're at today. So tell me a little bit about what you're working on right now and how people can connect with you and find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website, of course, Wandering the Wild Mess. So it's a play on wilderness because I love the outdoors. So I'm just like a big hiker girl. So maybe that'll help you remember. But Wandering the Wild Mess. And then I have my podcast, same name, and a lot of big things. I'm now almost to 60 episodes. So that's like really exciting to me. And I'll be kind of sharing a lot about mindset and starting over and how you can really, like, up to this point, a lot about my journey. So if you want to hear more about the wild mess it was, and be like, if that girl got here, I can, because there's a lot of messy stories in there. And then I'm also just some big things, like I'm working on some different like different tools that can really support like mindset shift on when you're starting over, whether it's like a breakup in a relationship or it's a career shift and you're going to like step into starting your own business, or anything that you're really just feeling like, I don't know why I'm here. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so it'll really help guide you. Cause like we talked about, the foundationally, it's like, who do you want to be? It's not like what business do you want to run or whatever, because the successful version of you needs to come through for that business to thrive. So whatever. And same with relationships, because I realize some people's goals are around like finding their person, but you have to embody the person that you want to be. So it all comes back to self-concept and how you identify and what you think you're worthy of. Those are the key things. And so a lot of the tools that I'll be building are around, how do you really get to that place, to find your worthiness, to find yourself, to design your self concept. So you can really like take those nudges and run with them, right? Like they see your course on, like, they're like, okay, like I feel like I should move in that direction. I feel prepared to start that online business because I've been doing all this work on myself. I think, it's just like, I think they're transferable. Like whether you want to start be in a relationship or start a business, right? It's like, who am I? And you don't have to be fully healed. You don't have to be fully healed to be in a relationship. You don't have to be fully ready to go to start an online business. You just have to be enough in a place where you trust yourself to make the right decisions to get you to the results you want from that relationship or that business, right? It's going to be a toxic relationship that's all over the place if you keep the same patterns, because that's what you've said is true for you. And that's the same with business. If for you, you've said, I don't know how to do these things, you're not going to be able to deliver on those things. So it's when you're like, I am like this business owner, I am helping people, I am these things, that you just lean into it. I am great at relationships. I am and you're just embodying that. And then when imposter syndrome, like I even still have come, you're just able to be like, no, this is, I am, you know, and that's just a huge place. So definitely check out my website. If you subscribe to my email list, you'll be like the first to know about things that are coming through. And follow me on Instagram. I'm on, Heather Diane. That's my middle name, but I'm sure you'll plug those. And then I have a couple TikToks. So one's more, I'm not even going to share that, but it's so funny. My contrast of personality, Sophie, because I have a TikTok that's like Utah girl in Nashville. I'm just kind of like fun and playful because that's such a big piece of living your true purpose, is just being fun and childlike in those ways. And then my other one, Wandering the Wild Mess, the podcast, it's not really the podcast. It's me talking about manifestation in the same way I did here today. And so I'm kind of leaning into that because it's calling to me. And then YouTube, you can find me as well.
Amazing. I've loved hearing you talk because you're speaking my language. I try and adopt very much a similar mindset and way of living and being as much as I possibly can. Obviously, sometimes we all get sidetracked or veer off path, which is part and parcel of life. We can find our way back onto the trust in the intuition, trust in the process train.
Sometimes we don't want to, Sophie. Last thing I'll say is I was saying that, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not acting all high and mighty, like, oh, look at me. I always make these good decisions. Like, if you listen to my podcast, you'll know. But like, I had so many taps after, even when I knew my intuition, like in the one relationship I've had since post divorce, which I learned so much. So again, I'm always like, what is this teaching me? But there were so many signs. It's like, this ain't it. And it's not that it was bad. It just wasn't it. And I could have never been my highest self in the relationship. And it was loud. And I was still like, do. Well, let's go on an adventure. Let's just do it for the plot. So don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not over here saying that I'm just like, in this Zen zone. Like, I definitely am. I'll see times like do it for the plot, but I think it's grounding to just know that you're messy and you'll figure it out even through the mess. Like I was that time I was just like, and that story is another wild one. And I'm just like, so I definitely am chaotic and messy still. I try to ground myself and give myself grace for those things.
Yeah, but the thing is, you have to go through those things, right? You have to go through them to understand the lessons, to see the patterns, to understand all the things. And if you look at your life, if anyone looks at their life, you will see patterns in absolutely everything. Everything you go through in your relationships, in your career, in your finances, in your friendships, your family life, there is going to be so many patterns that you are not even aware of, and you won't be aware. You're just going to keep reliving them until you learn a lesson. And each lesson is meant to, like, I look at it almost like a little game, like a little Mario Kart game, for
Yeah.
example. And we need to bump ourselves up a level every
Yeah.
time we make a failure. For example, we kind of go back a tiny little bit, but then we might win past a few of the lessons and go boop boop boop, like multiple levels
Yes.
up. But it's only if you are actually looking and making changes in your behavior. If you're staying the same and you're doing the same thing over and over again, you are just going to keep getting stuck in that cycle, whatever that cycle looks like for you. Different decisions based on the things that you already know, you're going to keep advancing. Is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, if you can,
Yes.
like, it's a little game sometimes. I'm like, okay, life's playing that little game with me again. I'm reliving my pattern. What do I need to do differently? Do I go
Reliving what? Yes, I've definitely done that a handful of times where I'm like, Heather, that I didn't think we wanted to be her anymore.
I feel that so deeply. You've got no idea. But yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Yes,
It was amazing.
it's
Really
so great.
thank you. And thank you. We'll share all of the links that you said in the comments, in the, what's it called, show notes.
All right, perfect. It was so great to talk with you, Sophie. I'm excited for all the things you're doing.
Thank you so much.